Hey, first period, it is Academic English 9. This is your distance learning week 2. So today's lesson is Wednesday, April 8th, and we are looking at explicit versus implicit evidence that we're going to be applying to the lady or the tiger. To begin, you'll have your Grammaropolis lesson on interjections. Reminder that you must score 80% to receive credit for that lesson. Okay, so explicit and implicit evidence. You have seen, I'm sure, these terms before. And basically what we need to look at is the fact that explicit evidence is something that we can actually see whenever we point to it in the text. So it's actually written in there. On the other hand, implicit evidence is something that we think based on what we saw in the text. So implicit evidence comes from explicit evidence. And let's take a look.
So today we're going to talk about the difference between explicit and implicit information. The first thing you're going to learn is how to identify explicit text. Next, you're going to learn how to use that explicit text to come up with an inference or implicit information from the story. So what exactly is explicit information? Explicit information is going to be any information stated clearly and in detail, leaving no room for any doubt. But what exactly does that mean? So let's take a look at this selection from a story. The grasshopper laughed at the ant and said, "Stop your silly work and have fun with me." "No," said the ant, "I'm gathering food for winter. You must do that too." "Ha ha! Right now I have plenty to eat. Why should I worry now?" laughed the grasshopper. Based on the explicit text, I know that the grasshopper laughed at the ant. How do I know that he laughed at the ant? Well, it says so right here in the story. The grasshopper laughed at the ant. That makes this explicit information from the story. So basically, if you can point to it in the text, it's explicit information. So what is implicit information if that's explicit information? To help us out, let's take a look at our example from the story one more time. The grasshopper laughed at the ant and said, "Stop your silly work and have fun with me." "No," said the ant, "I'm gathering food for winter. You must do that too." "Ha ha ha! Right now I have plenty to eat. Why should I worry now?" laughed the grasshopper. Here I can say that I think the grasshopper is lazy. Notice here that I say I think. I'm not saying I know he's lazy because the story doesn't actually say that he's lazy. However, I can use clues in the story that lead me to believe he is lazy. The first clue that makes me think that the grasshopper is lazy is where he calls the ant's work silly. Because he uses that word silly, it means he's not wanting to do any work and is therefore lazy. Another clue that makes me think he's lazy is he asks the ant why he needs to worry about winter coming and not having enough food. This tells me that he's relaxed. He's not concerned with getting more food. He's not willing to work any harder. So the author is giving you, the reader, clues in their explicit text, and you take those clues and use your prior knowledge, such as people who don't like to work are considered lazy, and you can see the author is implying the grasshopper is in fact lazy. So if you can use any of the explicit information the author gives you to support an inference, you've identified implicit information in the story. So to review, if you can point to it in the text, it's definitely explicit information. And if you can use that explicit information to support an inference, then it's implicit information. So congrats! You now know how to identify explicit and implicit information. If you have questions, see your teacher.
Okay, guys, so what are you going to need to do? There is an assignment posted in Classroom for you today entitled Explicit and Implicit Evidence in the Lady or the Tiger. So, as you might guess, you are going to be taking a look at the text and pulling some evidence that might lead you to make an inference. Okay, so let's take a look at exactly what you need to do. You're going to have a link in the assignment to this document. And the document has got 4 different categories for each of the characters in the story. So you're going to see the king listed first. And then after the king, you've got the princess, or I'm sorry, the people in the kingdom, the princess, the young man, the lady, and the king's servants. And you're going to be thinking about each of those characters in 3 different categories. So first of all, which of the other characters in the story influence that character? So if we take a look first at the king, you can think back to the story and know that 2 different characters that we mentioned influence the king. The princess does and the young man does. And how do they influence the king? So first of all, if we go back to the story, we see the exact words that are written here. The king loved the princess deeply, and you can see that I'm numbering the characters that I have here, and I'm going to keep my comments following through with those numbers in each of the columns so that when you submit it, I can easily grade it. Okay, so the princess. The king loved the princess deeply, watched her closely, and was very jealous of her. With the young man was in love with the princess, and she returned his love. The king threw the young man in prison and named a date for his appearance in the arena. These 2 things actually happened in the text. There is no questioning. But what do they make me think? So when I think about the princess and the king, I have this. The king loved his daughter, so of course he would watch over her. But his jealousy of her is unsettling and abnormal. The reader is led to believe that his jealousy over his daughter would lead him to punish her for his own pleasure or his own purpose. So I'm making that inference based on the things that I've seen in here. It's not really normal for a father to be jealous of his daughter, even if it is royalty or, some circumstance like that. And then I followed through with the young man. So the king's jealousy seems to lead him to act on his feelings of betrayal that the princess would sneak behind his back and that the young man would have the nerve to think he could love someone out of his own social class. Okay, so this is not written in there. It's what I kind of thought based on what I saw in the story. So you're going to continue that work with the rest of the characters that are listed here, going through each of those 3 categories for each of the characters and submit with the assignment on Classroom. Overview for today's tasks. Grammaropolis, interjections, activities. Make sure that you are scoring 80%. And if you don't get that 80% on the first time, know that you can go back and redo it so that you do reach 80% and get credit. Additionally, guys, I'm noticing that some of you are not completing the whole thing. And when I look at your score, I can tell what you've done and what you've not done. I don't care if there's a song and you skip the song. But I do need to make sure that you're doing all the activities that are there. So make sure that you do what you know needs to be done. Second, you're going to complete the assignment on the chart that we just looked at together and submit it for a grade. And we are continuing with the idea about characterization and how it shapes the plot. So all of the work that we're doing here, ladies and gentlemen, is going to lead us to make a determination about whether or not the princess helped the young man. Okay, so we really need to be thinking through all the events in the story in order to come to an educated guess about that. So Seeing is believing. So we hope that you understand from what we learned today about explicit and implicit information that when we form our thoughts as readers, we do that based on what's actually there in print. And actually, we do it without even knowing that we're doing it. And those are skills that we build as readers to become even better readers as we go along. So I hope you have a little bit of fun with your work today. I hope it's not too difficult for you, and we will catch up with you tomorrow for the last of the assignments that we will be doing in preparation of our argumentative writing next week.